And welcome to the Luke and Tony Sports Hour. I'm Luke Wickiser with my good friend Tony Snyder. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think we got a lot to cover here. I know I've been amped up about the Browns for pretty much months, I guess, and I've
Yeah,
still got a few months left to go.
right.
But
Since the end of last
what
season, yes.
exactly? Normally we're amped up, or since I amped up, normally we're like dying for the season to end, but now we can't wait for it to start. So
Good place to be.
So, what did you catch much of the draft, Tony? What did you think about the draft?
I did not catch much of the draft. However, I have recorded it for later analysis, so we might want to catch up on that a little later. But from what you told me and from what I do know, I was not displeased with any of our picks. Did you have any that you were unsure about, like where the GM was coming from?
I don't really think I had any that I was unsure of, and let's give the audience a rundown of the picks. I know I've been posting a lot about it on Facebook, but we did not have a first-round pick for the first time since 2008.
And boy, did that feel great! By the way.
Oh man, well, it felt great not to have like I told my friends and told you on my birthday. I said the birthday present for me was, we didn't have to draft a quarterback, we didn't have a top 5 pick, and we didn't have a first rounder. So.
Pretty great.
But yeah, the draft list for the Cleveland Browns at 46 overall in the second round, they took Greedy Williams. I was really excited to get him. The only knock I have on him is the guy isn't really known as a tackler, but he'll do what he's paid to do as a cover corner. He'll lock you down in man-to-man coverage. And then 80th overall, there's a guy, I hope I pronounce his name right. It's Sion Taki, a linebacker out of BYU. And I don't know if it was Elliot Wolf, our assistant GM, or the guy that passed along this information to him, but I read somewhere where they said he plays with violence, and I'm like, I like this guy already. So, yeah, you need an enforcer somewhere on the linebacking core, and it looks like this guy, he could be a starter. I think he would be if he's a third-round pick.
We'll see if we can keep him healthy through the exhibition season. Go from there.
I read one book one time where it said, what did it say? It said something like, as long as homicidal rage can be channeled into football, it's a good thing.
Right.
So, yeah, he was our third-round pick. He was 80th overall out of BYU. The next pick was pick 119, Sheldrick Redwine out of Miami, and he's a safety. And I think he was about 6 foot 185, so he's kind of long and lanky, but he actually could come up and stop the run and be good in run support. But he's also good in coverage as well, so I really like that one. The one that I thought was a steal for a later round pick was Mack Wilson. He's a linebacker out of Alabama, and he's actually good at covering.
Right.
I mean, not to knock on any linebackers, but typically when you get a linebacker on a receiver, that's always a mismatch. So he's got some hands for a linebacker.
So maybe a level the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in general, Alabama doesn't recruit stiffs. So at least as far as talent, we're not going to talk about character at the moment. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to bash Nick Saban too much, but if he's in the business of winning football games, that's pretty much all he's there for. So
well, and as it should be, but that's a discussion for another day.
Right.
Go ahead.
I just was going to say the only I wouldn't say questionable pick, but the only one I thought was a reach for John Dorsey was drafting a kicker in the 5th round, 170th overall. He drafted Austin Seibert, however you pronounce his name.
I think
he's
Seibert.
A kicker out of
Seibert.
He's the kicker out of Oklahoma, and I think he's what they say he doesn't really kick much beyond 40 yards. But then again, when you had the offense you did with Kyler Murray, you really didn't have to.
Right. Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting thing. He'll definitely push Greg Joseph for his job. And the only offensive guy we went with this whole draft was an offensive tackle by the name of Drew Forbes out of Southeast Missouri State. And he's not going to be a starter. I think he'd be behind Austin Corbett. So I think that pick was more for depth. And Donnie Lewis was our final pick of the day. He was our final pick of the draft. He was 221 overall, which is the 7th rounder out of Tulane. I read he's a pretty good run stopper, but he's got a fractured foot right now. So he's kind of a conditional pick, I guess.
Right.
But as far as the draft, I really liked it. I mean, Dorsey loaded up in free agency on, Odell Beckham Jr., a few offensive linemen, and then when he goes to the draft, he bolsters the defense. So
Hmm.
I think the free agency and draft just complemented each other really well. So,
Now, try
um,
not to be a homer. Give the Browns a grade because right now, um, trying to take my fandom out of it, although still being excited, I'll say B plus, A minus, somewhere in there.
for the draft or for off
Uh,
season?
for the draft. Off season, I think I'd give a solid A, just
Right,
because the draft was so good. But
right.
what do you think? Both
Uh,
of the draft and the off season.
I mean, I think I'm with you on the off season, giving it a solid A, but for the draft, I'll give it a solid B. Um,
Okay.
I don't really think you had to, like I was saying with the offseason, with free agency, I don't think you really had to have a knock it out of the park draft like
Right.
Dorsey did last year.
And
Last year it
isn't
was
that
A.
such a luxury, by the way?
Yeah, I know.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and I posted on Facebook the other day. I go, guys, it's still weird seeing a Cleveland Browns GM's picks make sense.
Right.
You
Oh
know,
yes. Yeah.
because there were.
They,
Oh, go ahead.
that the experts weren't left shaking their heads.
Right,
So.
right. I think
Hmm.
Mel Kiper gave the Browns a B plus. I think for the draft.
Right.
So, but
Right.
no, I just remember in the past with Ray Farmer and Sashi Brown, the Harvard lawyer, I scratched my head and be like, what are you stiffs doing?
Right. Right. Is there a plan here? Because we can't tell what it is.
Well, I guess David Gettleman and the Cleveland Browns have switched places, the Giants GM. We're not going
Yeah.
to spend too much time on him, but goodness, I think Dorsey fleeced him in free agency. So,
Right. Yeah.
um,
It's always
but
good to be on the receiving end of steals of picks. It'll be interesting to see when we come to the end of this season how much of this has been borne out. How much really impact that we got from this new crop of players. So
right, right, and I know my dad and some other fans have said, you won't really know about a draft class probably 2-3 years down the road.
right, right,
Like we're still trying to figure out if Baker Mayfield is going to be the man in Cleveland. I think he is, but he's only
right,
played one season, and
right.
it wasn't even a full season.
No,
So you
yeah,
won't know how good this draft class or the last one was until
right.
we played a couple seasons. So
Hmm.
speaking of the season, do you want to go with a 2019 schedule breakdown, and we can go over the games we think the Browns will
Let's
win or lose?
let's do. Excuse me. Let's do that. Yes. So we
Yeah,
can
right,
be
buddy.
on record and we can be, I was trying to cough, but it wouldn't come. So let's do that. I would really like to be able to say, we know something of the game. And, I was talking with my friends in sports lunch at Kent State this week. And I said, it's really interesting. Uh, this was a general comment around the table, but there are so many mock drafts
Right.
that are done by any number of outlets, and they disappear then as soon as another one is done. So it's almost like weathermen and draft analysts wouldn't suffer any adverse consequences for being wrong. So it would be interesting to
Right.
see at the end of the season how accurate we actually are with these predictions. So we'll see what happens. But
Right. Right. So let's go
right,
through the schedule here. At home against the Titans on September 8th. I'm actually going to let you give your breakdown on these games because I did a breakdown for most of the draft, but I'll just say win or loss, and then you can agree,
right,
disagree, tell
hmm,
the audience why. I think you're more suited for this
right,
area. So,
right.
um, September 8th against the Titans. I'm going to mark that down as a win for the Browns.
Now
What do
is
you
this
think?
on the road?
It's at home. It's at home in Cleveland against
Okay,
Tennessee.
well, I would like to think that the way this fan base has reacted, that we get at least a point and a half or more being at home. But I think the Titans are one of those teams that can beat anybody. I'm a big fan of Marcus Mariota, and then I look stupid when he has a 4 turnover game. But I do think that we'll be able to win that. I don't think necessarily it'll be a blowout, but I would like to see us win by a touchdown or 10 points. We'll see what happens. So that would be 1-0 for me.
Right, a solid win. I'm going to
Right.
go with you 1-0 as well. And I'm not saying the 12th man dictates a game, but it definitely helps. And
Right.
could you imagine the hype that's been building all summer and
Oh
all
man.
spring for these guys, just unleashed on opposing quarterbacks like Mariota every week at home? Oh my goodness.
What I think the big thing is with that is that the veterans and the new guys have pretty much bought in to this hype machine and said, no, we are fully ready to be as good as we can be and not try to shy away from the moment instead of, quaking in our shoes the minute we read something in the newspaper. So we'll see what happens.
So what you're telling me is, Freddie Kitchens is going to have them act like they've been there before.
Yeah, what I think, I don't know if I want to get your comments on this, but I would have never thought that I would have enjoyed a 7-9 season so much. Because it felt like even the games we lost, except for a few notable exceptions, we were in it at the very end and competitive. And and for a team that has been so bad for so long, to even have a season like that is a breath of fresh air. So
right.
Mm-hmm.
And before we move on to the next few games,
right.
I loved what Freddie Kitchens said in his press conference. He said 7-8-1 is unacceptable, and I'm like, this guy gets it.
Right.
I'm we've never had a coach say that. I mean, sure, they're going to say the positive things, like we're going to turn it around, we're going to do this and that, but we've heard that. We've seen that horror movie how many times in Cleveland? So
many times. And
to have a guy just
many.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But to have a guy like Freddie to just say that's unacceptable, I'm like, this guy's going to be around for a while.
Right.
I hope.
Yeah.
So for week 2, we got at the Jets. It's a Monday Night Football game. We're going to have to face our old friend Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator. He was the former Browns defensive coordinator and interim head coach. That one at New York is going to be a tough one, but I still think the Browns could win that one. I think it'll be maybe a touchdown or less. It's going to be a tight one, but I think
I will even agree with you on the margin there. I think that we know what sort of a wizard Greg Williams can be as far as mixing up coverages and blitzes and things like that. But we have to remember that the Jets have the possibility of being quite bad. So
absolutely,
if we can play like we've been playing, and that is certainly not a given, I feel like we could win by a touchdown or more, but I will go with you a touchdown or less.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see, too, a little side story in this game. I remember when Baker Mayfield was first drafted by the Browns, he actually went to Williams and talked smack with him before the first practice. And, Greg Williams liked that when Baker kind of got in his face and was like, I'm going to tear your defense apart in practice. And he's like, come get some. So now he's going to have a good time going after the kid.
Oh, yeah.
Different defensive coordinator.
Well, I would imagine, this is just pure speculation, but I would imagine that if the camera is on both of them before the game and after the game, I think it'll be a lot more cordial both times than it ever was with, I'm blanking on our old coach's name. Hugh Jackson, because I want to forget the Hugh Jackson era. Oh my!
Who could blame you for blanking? I don't blame you.
Geez. When Hugh Jackson went in for the hug, I was like, you really expect him to hug you? Please. But anyway, it will be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Right, absolutely. All right, the next game, I've got this one marked down as a loss, and I hate saying this, but the Cleveland Browns will play at home against the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday Night Football. That's going to be the first big litmus test of where this young team is at. If they could play and keep it within a touchdown, maybe 10 points with Los Angeles, or, God help us, pull off the upset, that would be enormous. But I got the Browns losing this one.
No, I do too. Now, as a side note, if we do happen to win that game, we may have a recording that people may not be able to make sense out of because we'll be laughing and so excited the whole time. I don't know how much sports talk will actually happen until we've come down from the clouds. But I think that if we are within 2 scores, I'll feel really good. I expect us to get blown out, and I would not be unhappy with it. I just want to see our play get consistently better if we can do that. So I agree with the loss on that one.
Right. I got kind of a feeling with the Rams that's going to be like last year's Chargers game.
Right.
That was like a 38-10 blowout. And, Los Angeles, the Chargers were just such a good team. And, the Browns were young and they weren't really figuring out who they were until later in the season. So, So now I have the Browns at 2-1. At Baltimore, it could go either way, but I'm going to go with a loss here. It's always tough to play at M&T Bank Stadium. The Ravens are tough at home. God, I hate them suckers. I want to beat them twice a year.
I know.
But
and if they were on the schedule the 3rd, 4th time, we'd want that too.
Right.
It's just like OSU Michigan, but I'll agree with you there. I think that we could steal one, and I also think we could sweep them, but I'm not going to be that ambitious for the purposes of this exercise. Uh,
Right.
and I think it will be very, very telling if we can keep it close with them and make them suffer while earning it. So
Right.
we'll see
Make
what
them,
happens.
like I always like to say, make them hurt in the morning.
Oh yeah, make them remember you. You know,
Yep. Yep. Make them a little uncomfortable.
right?
So, all right, we got the next one. It's at the San Francisco 49ers, and now they have a new guy in Nick Bosa on the defensive line, which that's going to be fun to deal with.
Right.
But I still think the Browns can go to San Francisco and win. I've got them at a win here. It'll be 3-2. That's a Monday Night Football game. If the Browns won, that'd be two Monday Night Football wins. I don't know when the last time the Browns won a Monday night game was. I want to say it was the 2008 game against the Giants.
Right.
Something like
Right.
that. It's been over a decade, but I have them beating the
Uh-huh.
49ers on Monday Night Football. What do you think?
Well, I do think that that this is one of the games that we should win, but I will not be surprised if we lose it. And I will be madder than I should be if we lose it because I think that San Francisco has the opportunity to be a really, really solid team. And when I say solid, I'm talking about the whole NFL. So not playoff necessarily, but certainly over 500 and probably should be a little better than that. So, yeah, I'll go with
Right.
that.
Okay. You're going with a win against San Francisco?
Yes, I will go with the win.
Okay, so we've got them at 3-2. Seattle, I know we did a practice run a little while ago for the show
Right,
trying to figure
right.
out the audio issues, and I said they'd beat Seattle. I'm going to go with what your original pick was during the practice run and say it's
Right.
going to be a loss. Um,
Yeah.
the Legion of Boom might not be together anymore, but Seattle's still tough. So,
Well, absolutely, and we've seen that teams last year, to some extent, were able to solve the riddle that is Russell Wilson, who is
right,
just still so much fun to watch, so dynamic. Um, he is one of those players for me that makes even average to good players great. So
right,
I feel like if we don't get blown out, I'll feel really good about it. If we make them think about it, if it's competitive in the fourth, I'll feel even better. But I will give us a loss on that.
right. And just to kind of expound on what you're saying about Russell Wilson, I feel a lot of the same way about Baker Mayfield.
Absolutely.
Like when you have guys that are leaders, I mean, you could do that with any sport.
Right.
LeBron James for basketball,
Right.
and Baker Mayfield for football. It's just like, no offense to Tyrod Taylor when he was in here. And I like
Right.
Tyrod, he's a pro's pro.
Right.
But when Baker first came in here, it's just like those guys responded to him.
Well,
And
and they would run through a wall and they would continue because I think that there is a common characteristic among leaders. It's not just charisma; it's the ability to say, "I will take us where we want to go if you follow me," and they only buy in if you show them how dedicated you are. And we saw that very early on with
right.
Baker Mayfield. So,
Right, absolutely.
mhm.
Okay, so we've got the Browns at 500 through 6 games, which I'd be okay with that.
Right.
And then they got a bye week, and I actually think this bye week is situated in the perfect spot because after the bye week, they have to travel to Foxborough to play the New England Patriots, and that one's going to be another test. I'm going to go loss here, although I would absolutely love to see the Browns go into Foxborough and steal one. That would be a huge win,
Right.
but I don't see it happening, so I would have the Browns at 3-4. What do you think?
I'm going to agree with you there. We talked about a little bit about this in the pre-show, but if a New England team was 1-12 for some reason, which would never happen, but if they had the next, if they had 2 weeks in a row in Foxborough, they would probably win both of those games. Foxborough
Right.
is so difficult to win at, no matter how good your team is. So I'm going to give us a loss on that one. I think we can be competitive for about 3 quarters, but we could get blown out in the fourth. So we'll see
Right.
what happens.
And you never want to discount Tom Brady, even though the
No.
guy's 42 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
when Atlanta played them in the Super Bowl, it was 28-3, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to be, the biggest choke job in Falcons and NFL history,
Right.
or they're going to slam the door shut. And unfortunately, it was the former.
Right.
So,
right.
and I remember when he scored that first touchdown on the way to coming back, I just had this rotten gut
no.
feeling like he's going to
Here
come
it
back and do
comes.
it,
Yep.
and he did.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I don't think the Browns will win that one. I think our best chance of winning a game in Foxborough was 2013. We ain't played them in a while.
Right.
But unfortunately, a suspicious fourth down call still has me steamed 6 years later.
Right.
But I
Right.
got to get over that.
The wound
Um,
is still fresh. Yeah.
oh yeah, I want to beat New England every chance I get.
Oh yeah.
I got a friend. Hey Bob, shout out to you, Bob Vickers. I
Yeah.
love the guy to death, but
Right.
that was still a fixed game.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, anyway, I think there are very few teams in the NFL that are as polarizing as New England. So there's never any person that I have talked to in any depth that's been like, yeah, I like the Patriots, but they're not they're not rabid, they're not dynamic about them, and everybody else is like, oh, I hate them so much. It's kind of like when I go to the women's Final Four and wear my UConn stuff, I have to sit with the UConn people, or I'm gonna be lambasted. So
right.
anyway.
Right, but anyway, we've got the Browns at 3-4, which through 7 games, that's not bad.
Right.
The next one is at Denver. I know the Browns had a close game at Denver this last season. I forget who Denver drafted these last couple days ago, but they drafted a new quarterback. I'm going to say the Browns win this one again in Denver, not so much because we won there last year. Those are two different teams, but I just have a feeling that Steve Wilkes, the Browns defensive coordinator, is going to be licking his chops to get after a rookie quarterback.
Right.
I forget who Denver drafted. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Right.
But they've drafted a rookie quarterback, but they've got Joe Flacco. So,
Right.
but yeah, I still think he would get after the quarterback. I think the Browns are going to win on the road in Denver to get to 4-4. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. So we'll be at 4-4, but this is going to be one of those games that if we lose it in Denver, once again, I will be more upset than I should be. Because it's incredibly difficult to win in Denver, but when you're so close and you're
Right.
not able to do it, particularly when they're not a great team and they're young, I feel like there aren't that many opportunities in a 16-game season to win games against teams that you should beat rather handily.
Right.
So I think we need to win as many of those as we can, which is cliche and totally. Of course, you need to win as many games as you can, but particularly when you are so much better than another team, you need to come out and make a statement. So,
Right, exactly. And hey, it's okay to use cliches because people use cliches all the time because there's an element of truth.
there's a grain of truth.
So,
Yep.
right. Okay, so we got the Browns at 4-4, which I would take that. But then it starts, I shouldn't say getting easier, but then the schedule gets fun. And when I say fun,
Right.
I mean it really sets the Browns up well to make a playoff run. And I'm going to say they're going to keep making that playoff run on November 10th against the Bills at home in Cleveland. I think they're going to beat the Bills. And then they would be at 5-4 through 9 games, which I would be going nuts.
Right. Well, I think this would be the one that if we didn't blow them out, I would start to worry about our season, because I don't think the Bills have much to offer at the moment. And being at home, I think you really need to make a statement for the fans and the organization to say that we're really on the winning track, and go from there. Particularly as you said, the schedule seems to get easier, at least from what we know.
Right, and I also think one of the big factors in the Browns possibly winning that game against the Bills is, no disrespect to Josh Allen, the guy is a raw talent. He's a freak.
Absolutely.
He's got some skills, but he's still a very, very raw project type of quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think that might have been one of the reasons that John Dorsey didn't take him over Baker Mayfield.
Right.
The guy's got a cannon for an arm, but he sometimes lacks accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
He sometimes makes bad decisions, which
Right.
bad decision-making quarterbacks are going to be a feast for this defense.
Well,
So,
right.
I think that'd be another reason the Browns are going to win. Josh Allen's still trying to figure stuff out. So
Right.
the Browns are at 5-4. Here's an interesting one. 4 days later, 4-day turnaround, we play the Steelers at home on Thursday Night Football. You ready for that one?
Yeah, I'm always ready to trounce those Steelers. But the thing about them, I can't get a read on them because I have several friends that are Pittsburgh fans and rather rabid, and we'll give it to them because they're from there. But one of them in particular is feeling very good about the draft, and he better hope he's right, because right now I don't see them as a threat.
Right.
I think they could be a threat, and they will always be a threat in Pittsburgh because it's a very tough place to play. But I think if we are in a good spot when we play them, I feel like we've got an even better chance than normal to go in there and win. So
Right. And I will say just a little side note about the Steelers, even though it's an Ohio sports show mainly, I really do like their pick of Devin Bush, that linebacker out of
yes,
Michigan. They jumped up from 20 to
it was
10 to
superb.
draft him. So, as much as I rag on the Steelers, they are a very classy organization as far as it comes to drafting.
Right,
I think we might finally be able to close the gap with John Dorsey being the wizard that he is. But
right,
Pittsburgh's general manager, I don't know who he is, but
right,
they always seem to reload rather than to rebuild.
right.
So,
And they always
but
seem to
we didn't
find.
get into the win. Oh, go right ahead.
I'm sorry. And they always seem to find the diamonds in the rough as well.
Right, exactly.
That they kind of cultivate, and then they become Pro Bowlers and superstars. So
Yep. And I think the last time they traded up into the top 10 or 15, they got a guy by the name of Troy Polamalu, and we know how.
And we
good
know
he
how that
is.
worked out.
Yeah. But anyway, we didn't get into the business of a win or loss against the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. I'm going to go with a win since it's in Cleveland.
Yeah, and the home advantage is going to be what does it for us. So I'll say the same thing.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, now we have the Browns at 6-4, which that would be a great spot to be in.
Right.
This next one, I'm going to pull a line out of your book and say if we don't win this one, I'm going to freak out.
Right.
At home against the Miami Dolphins. I think we ought to win that one going away.
Well, and my going away for the Miami Dolphins is 3 scores. I don't know what yours would be, but if we win by 30, I'll feel really great.
Right.
I think that we'll win by 3 touchdowns. I hope it'll be more, just so we can say, hey, when we need to, we can take somebody to the woodshed. So
Right, exactly. And the Browns for the longest time have played up or down to their competition.
Yeah.
Now you need to start beating these bad teams or supposedly bad teams to really show that you've made some separation.
Right.
So okay, the Browns. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's it.
I'm just going to say the Browns are now 7-4, which at that point the city will be freaking out because they're sensing a playoff run. But I think it'll come to a bit of a halt this next week at the Steelers, December 1st. Like you said, it's always tough to win at Pittsburgh. Whenever we play them, I would expect us to win in Cleveland and lose in Pittsburgh. I'm going to go with a loss against the Steelers on the road here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We're agreeing a lot. This is interesting. But if we lose by less than 10, I'll be ecstatic.
Right. If it can be a close game.
Right.
All right. This next one will be interesting. You've got the 2 Heisman Trophy winners. I should say last year's Heisman Trophy winner in Kyler Murray. A couple of years ago, Baker Mayfield. Those two are going to be dueling it out in the desert as the Browns travel to the Cardinals. I'm going to say the Browns get the better of the rookie, go after Kyler Murray, and the Browns get the win, putting them at 8-5.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with this one. I think.
Sorry about that, folks. Actually, correction. The game after the Steelers is actually at home against the Bengals. I will go with a win there as well.
Yeah.
So apologize for that, folks.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know which Andy Dalton will show up. I feel like this is another one we should handily win, but we don't usually. So hopefully this will be another indication that the culture is changing. I will give us a win there too.
Right. So apologies for the mix-up, guys. But we've got the Browns over the Bengals at home. Then they play the Cardinals.
Right.
And I think those are both going to be wins, which would put them at 9-5. Yes, 9-5. And then we got a game at home against the Ravens just before Christmas. That one I'm going to say is a win because I picked them to lose against the Ravens on the road this last game against them.
Right.
That'll be an interesting one. I bet there will be some snow. There'll be some elements there. Hopefully we've figured out if the Browns have lost the first game against the Ravens, we figured out something and can counter that in the second game. I really think the Browns defense could hone in on Lamar Jackson and contain him.
Right.
So the Browns have a chance to have 3 wins in a row heading into the finale. What do you think, Tony? Could they get on a roll here?
We need to be on a roll at this point. We need to be on a roll so that if we lose this last game, it's not going to matter quite as much. You can rest people, whatever. But there aren't that many games in the NFL that you feel like you should win and you're able to do it unless you are an elite club. And I think in order to become an elite club, you have to start winning those games. So we'll see what transpires. I think this is the group that could start to do it, and wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, man, that'd be fun. Well, and if the Browns beat the Ravens at home, that would also mean they'd have the first 10-win season since 2007, which I remember what that was like. I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
So it's definitely time to have one of those. And then to end the season, December 29th at Cincinnati, I'm going to go with a win there. I'm not
I,
disrespecting the new coach, Zach Taylor, but I just think Cincinnati, like you said in the past, is kind of a non-entity right now. They're trying to
right.
find a way. Cleveland's on the rise. I think the Browns will end the season on a 4-game winning streak.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Um, it definitely depends on what has happened in the previous 3 games. But if we've won 3 in a row, we absolutely need to make it 4 in a row against a team that is searching for an identity. I feel like the ownership has been a disservice to the city. I feel like it's been a disservice to the city and the fans. When you have a talent like Andy Dalton, no matter how quixotic or inconsistent he happens to be, you need to build around him.
Right.
And in the last few, I would say the last 5 years or so, you expected some sort of interesting story like scandal or somebody, like I'm trying to come up with the name. I'm sorry, but every week you'd be like, oh, somebody else got suspended, or somebody's unhappy with the culture. Somebody's upset. It's kind of like the Steelers this past off season on a grander scale. So I feel like you have to beat those teams when they're down and not give them a chance to resurrect themselves.
Right. Right. And I told my mom, because she's a huge Bengals fan,
Right.
poor lady suffered this year. But I told her, I said, Mom, I hope Cincinnati and Cleveland both get good, and Pittsburgh and Baltimore both go to the cellar. That would be nice, because that was what it was like back in the 80s. But we'll see what happens. I know we've got two younger coaches. Freddie Kitchens is 44. He's the Cleveland Browns head coach. Zach Taylor's 36. He's younger than you are, Tony, believe it or not.
Hey, how about that?
But yeah, I think 11-5 would definitely get the Browns into the playoffs. It might win the division for how black and blue this division is.
Right.
So, but wouldn't that be something? I think if the Browns, if
we're salivating here, folks.
Yeah, just dream for a second, guys. I mean, it's late April and we're already thinking of January 2020. Right. So. Right. But no, I definitely think Cleveland has a chance to get to the playoffs. That would be something for Freddie Kitchens and the whole organization. And Tony, I got a question to ask you. Have you had time to view any of the Building the Browns episodes on YouTube?
So these are on YouTube. You said I have not.
Yes.
Where did they come from? From the organization themselves itself, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the organization. Well, it's actually on both YouTube and Facebook, and I would say it's kind of if I had to explain how it is and how it's set up, it's kind of like a Hard Knocks, except it's a half-hour episode rather than an hour.
Right.
And they talk about all sorts of things. Like I know the first one was the combine. Maybe the last couple have been about the draft. This one was really neat because it showed Baker Mayfield interacting with people in general, not just in the organization,
right.
but fans. He went and got a haircut. He got a shave at the barber shop, which he was really friendly with people, and it's good to see a guy that really embraces the town because Baker's been kind of, what do I want to say? I don't want to say this word, overlooked. He kind of has been all of his career in football, period. Whether that's college or pros, he's had to work for everything he's got. So he definitely fits that blue collar mentality of the town, and people just rally around him. They're excited, and. One of the funny things I remember, the guy was one of the guys there was talking to him. He goes, "Hey man, what are we going to do? How are we going to tailgate for primetime games when it's 8:00?"
Right.
And he said, maybe not start so early. Don't start drinking so early in the morning. But telling Browns, yeah, but telling Browns fans not to party in the Muni lot is like telling water not to be wet.
Right. They'll figure it out, I'm pretty sure.
Right, definitely. And one of the last things I saw that was really neat is Freddie Kitchens. I've always liked his collaborative abilities. He knows he's a rookie head coach. He knows he's got a lot to learn. But I'm glad that when he hired Todd Monken, our offensive coordinator, he came over from the Buccaneers, and then the defensive coordinator Steve Wilkes came from Arizona as the head coach over there. He's like, I want to focus more on building a system that fits our coaches and fits our talent rather than forcing them to fit what I want. Right. I think that kind of thing is really going to get this thing to take off. And it's just awesome to see how well he works with others, and how honest he is and blunt he is. He's just one of them good old Southern boys. I mean, I hope he starts winning and does really well, and I think he will. So,
Right.
But yeah, for those of you who have not seen them, I think they've got 7 total, but they've gone through 4 right now. They've put
Okay.
4 episodes of Building the Browns out. I think they have a couple more. Um,
Okay.
but for those of you who want to watch them, they're on the Cleveland Browns official YouTube channel, and they're on the Cleveland Browns Facebook page. They might be on Twitter as well. I'm not sure, but
Okay.
they're definitely on Facebook and YouTube. So,
Cool.
Tony, shifting gears, I'm going to let you take over this next
Yeah.
one. How about those Blue Jackets last night?
Wow. 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 So I watched the whole thing. Um, boy, this team does not quit. After sweeping a team that had won 62 games, think about that, in an 82 game season. Uh, I wanted to. I mean, I was going to be on the train no matter what. I just wanted to make sure that my roll was slowed because I didn't want to like say, oh yeah, we're just gonna take care of business again. But boy, this team does not quit. We were down in this game, and we just kept coming back, kept fighting, and to go through an entire 20 minutes sudden death overtime and still have the gumption to keep going through part of the second one and get a power play goal out of it is just the tenacity of this group, led by John Tortorella, is just fascinating. They would run through a wall for him. They're taking on the personality of the coach, and it's just amazing to watch. They never quit. They're a dynamic group, and even when you feel like they're kind of back on their heels, at any moment they could break away. So
Right.
it feels really great to go into a place like Boston, which is incredibly hard to play in any sport, and get a split. So I saw part of a headline / interview with one of the Jackets players, and he said, "Well, I can tell you that Columbus is going to be a whole lot louder than Boston was." So already stirring the pot, but they're going to bring it. I don't know how many of you saw any of this or heard about it, but there were at least 5,000, and I think I heard 5,500 at an open practice on last Monday morning at 10
Wow.
a.m. in Columbus. So
Wow.
Jackets fever is real.
Oh, definitely.
So
You know, and
we'll try to keep you updated as this goes along. But so they're getting ready for Game 3 in a few days' time. So
right. And I think Game 3 is Tuesday night in Columbus. You
yes.
know, I've got a friend and a brand new subscriber of mine, Alex Lamberjack.
All
He
right.
actually is from, you should say he's from my hometown, but he lived in Columbus for a while since he graduated from Ohio State.
Right.
And I tell you, I get texts from him all the time on the Blue
Oh yeah.
Jackets. He's been
Hmm.
following them like crazy,
Yeah.
and even for someone like me who's not a hockey fan, I
It'll
really
make you
enjoy.
one. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, and you guys that are hardcore Blue Jackets fans, you can tease me for being bandwagon. I am.
It's all
I've
right.
been
Well, and you won't be bandwagon for long. I think you'll be a lifer here before too long.
right.
But the only reason I haven't been to a game in person is because of my CP startle reflex, and they shoot the cannon off every time they score a goal. But I think, and I can't imagine not going next year. But if we do, I will have my noise canceling headphones, and I will be screaming my fool head off. So there you have it.
Yeah, I know. I would definitely be suspect to jump at the cannon. My dad always teases me. There's times
Oh
he'll
yeah.
tease me. He'll come around the corner and just say boo or real
Yeah.
loud or something, and I'll jump and then say the most choice words that I will not say on here, or we'll
Right.
get shut down by the FCC. But I
Right.
I have the same reflex of as having someone that as being someone that has CP. So
Right.
um,
Right.
but yeah, for not being a hockey fan, I want to see Columbus go as far as they can.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I
they've
don't know.
already. I'm sorry. They've already
Oh,
accomplished more than we ever thought.
oh
So
yeah, well,
why not just keep the train moving and
right,
see what we can do?
right. I mean, they didn't just upset Tampa; they swept them. So now they're just playing with
Yeah.
house money.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then next, God bless the Blue Jackets. Hope they can keep going. I hope
Right.
Tortorella can keep doing his thing.
Hmm.
But next for the Indians, how about you update our viewers on what's going on with them right now? Tony, how are they doing? What's the standings? Any
But
injuries of note?
it's really
So,
interesting with this club because we just got swept 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, by Kansas City.
right.
And Kansas City is not very good. And then so you go in and you're feeling a little better. You get some wins that you probably should. And then the series that we're in now is with Houston. And I'm like, oh, we're going to lose all four of those. And
Right.
we go in there and we win the first two. And we should have won yesterday. So trying to get a read on this team is almost impossible at the moment. Because we will go through a lot of games and it'll be 2-1, very, very low scoring. And then we'll just bust out and look really great. I'm hoping that this series means that we can get some more consistency. And I think having Frankie back in the lineup, Francisco Lindor, is a big help to Jose Ramirez. So we'll see if that continues. I sure hope it does because this could be a really, really phenomenal team if they can put it together.
Oh yeah. But so the Indians now, let's see, they're at 15-11, which isn't bad. They're second in the AL Central. They lost, unfortunately, to the Astros on a walk-off home run, which those always suck to lose by.
Right.
But,
oh, absolutely. Yep.
Baseball's a marathon, not a sprint. And the cool thing for the Indians now, Carlos Carrasco, after suffering an apparent knee injury, he's going to come back and make his start here in probably the next 10 minutes.
It's tonight, actually. Yes.
Right. Yeah, I think the first pitch is 7:05. So
on ESPN, by the way. So enjoy that, you guys.
Right, enjoy the game, guys. But Carlos Cookie Carrasco is going to make his next start. It would really be nice to see him regain his form because I think right now he's got an ERA just over 6.
Right.
So he's struggling right now.
I think it's actually just at 6, but
really,
yeah.
Okay.
So, but that's splitting hairs. I apologize, but his last. I know that he got me over 10 points for my fantasy team at one point here recently. So hopefully he can keep it going and put us in a good spot to win this ball game, take the series. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So enjoy that.
Right. Tony, I haven't really been following it much because the Cavaliers aren't in it. But do you have anything you want to say on the landscape of the NBA playoffs?
I will say this: it will be very interesting to see how Boston does. It would be interesting to see how the Warriors kind of react in this next series because nobody expected them to have to go to a 6th game, but they did. There are a lot of interesting storylines, but I think that we'll need a few games to see how they flesh out.
Right.
I was really, really not impressed with Indiana as a whole. They've been eliminated, but boy, do they have some talent. And I'm wondering if it is a coaching situation or what. But I mean, they were competitive in every game, but they could not put it together. So,
didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
I'm just gonna say that's an interesting thing. It's a whole different animal when you hit the NBA playoffs. I mean.
Right.
That's why you see teams like San Antonio, Golden State. I wouldn't say turn it off during the regular season, but you see them get rested. You see them give about 80%, which for fans, it's like, come on, give it your everything. But they're not planning for 82 games. They're planning for the 16 they need to win the championship.
One of the teams that I guess we can't call sleeper anymore, and if you've been watching the regular season, you would think that they are no longer dark horses, the Denver Nuggets. They took out San Antonio. And I won't say they made it look easy, but they never shied away. And it's very interesting for a Greg Popovich coach group to be ushered out in the first round. So we'll see how Denver continues on. Perhaps they can be one of the legitimate challengers to the Warriors out west. We'll see how things develop.
Right. Who does Denver have in this upcoming series?
I don't have that at the moment, but
here, let me take a quick look.
Okay.
I want to say Denver has Portland. Let me take a look here.
I believe you're right. And you want to talk about one of the more offensively dynamic series out there. Damian Lillard, I don't know if any of you saw last week that he hit the game winner to eliminate in the last series. I mean, it was just 37 feet, I think. Just absolutely nuts. And Denver, I don't know what their average is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was over 90 points per game. And just there will be some defense, but I don't know if we'll be able to tell. in that series. So that's one of the ones that I'll be really paying a lot of attention to. I try to watch every game of every series, but that can be somewhat impossible sometimes. But the NBA is shaping up nicely, and I wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the playoffs. So I'm glad to see that there will be some series that are intensely interesting no matter what the result.
Right. And I should follow the NBA more, but since the Cavaliers are going to be out of the playoff run for the next couple years.
I completely understand. Yeah.
Oh, man. Heck, we're still looking for a head coach. We'll definitely keep you guys updated on that search as it progresses.
Yeah. So. Well, and let me just say for the record, I think that our previous coach was not helping things. I think that Larry Drew can succeed. He's already succeeded some of the places. I don't know if it was the culture or the management, but it just didn't seem like he even though they took away the interim tag. I don't know how well he fit here. So we'll see what we can get. I hope that it's not some sort of reclamation project that people that are known for turning around teams and then leaving. I would like to see some continuity from a really great coach that says, hey, this is a pretty great job. I don't know if it will be a great job with the culture right now, but it needs to change somewhere. So we might as well start this year.
And to speak really quickly on Larry Drew, I think it was a mutual parting of ways. I think Larry Drew wanted out of Cleveland, and of course, when you've got a 63-loss season, it's going to take its toll on everybody.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So he wanted out, and Dan Gilbert was like, okay, we'll relieve you of that and look for your replacement. Not to be mean to him. I'm sure he was like, okay,
Right.
He probably understood.
It's very hard to stay on a ship that's already sunk. So,
the Cavaliers were not on a ship; they were on a submarine.
Right. So. When here's the interesting thing about that. I would like to think that I have some knowledge of the NBA with my probably 30 years of intensely watching. But all through the offseason last year, when LeBron left, I was like, we'll be fine if Kevin Love stays healthy. We'll probably win 40 games, and he didn't stay healthy, which shouldn't have surprised anyone, least of all me. And did we even get 20 for the regular season? I think we got 19.
19 and 63.
I mean, that is just absolutely horrendous. At least it is 10 games or so better than the worst ever. Because for a long time there, we thought we weren't going to get 10. So.
Oh, man. So, then of course, when you had the Cavaliers actually winning a couple games here and there, you had fans complaining about the draft order. But it's just like, I'm one of those that I understand you have to tank for the NBA. I hate losing more than I enjoy winning.
Oh, well, absolutely. And okay, so you tank and then you don't get it.
Right.
So where does that put us? And I think that does nothing for a culture that's already struggling. So.
Right, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But Tony, I think we've gone through just about everything. Do you have anything you want to add to our audience here?
Well, it's been a distinct pleasure. We hope that this continues on for quite a long time, and please let us know how we're doing, and if you enjoyed it, what you liked, what you didn't like. If you do choose to comment, please keep it civil, and we'll try to include you, the fans, as much as we can, and we'll see how this goes. This has been great fun. So thanks, Luke.
Right.
I know we've been talking about this for years in some form, so we're glad to get it actually on the road.
Get this plane finally off the ground and moving.
Right.
So.
Right.
But yep, again, this is the first episode of the As Yet Untitled Sports Show. If you like this, please hit the subscribe button. Hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend and a good week. I'm Luke Wickiser. This is my friend Tony Snyder.
Thanks so much, everyone.